Hi, I'm Jeff Byers, CEO and founder of Momentous, a leading high-performance company, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to episode 331 of the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Polar's new generation stunning running watches, the Polar Pacer and the Polar Pacer Pro. I'm Brad Beer, sports and exercise physiotherapist by trade and training and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. Of course, we do this across a range of our different episodes, interest editions, learn-ins catch-up episodes, coaches' corners, featured performers, and expert editions. And of late, we've been exploring some endurance innovations, catching up with what we've themed the Endurance Innovators. That theme continues today with a conversation we'll share with you that I recently had with Live.Momentous' CEO, Jeff Byers. Live.Momentous, formerly Amp Human, is an endurance brand on the rise. Jeff Byers, himself a former NFL lineman, speaks through the origins, the evolutions, and the future directions for Live.Momentous. Now, we've heard about Amp Human / Live.Momentous' PR Lotion, formerly on the show, with Professional Cyclists Wurf and Amanda Spratt both mentioning their use of the product. It's prolific amongst the Ironman Triathlon community and also the professional cycling peloton and also the endurance running world. In my time at altitude in Ethiopia in 2020, I saw many runners before their track workouts rubbing PR Lotion into their legs. So I thought it'd be fun to catch up with the founder of the company, Jeff Byers, to learn a little bit more about its mechanisms of use and also glean some principles around teamwork and physical best performance. Here is my conversation with CEO Live.Momentous, Jeff Byers. Jeff Byers, CEO of Momentous, welcome to the Physical Performance Show and this Founders Edition.
Hey, Brad, thanks for having me.
It's been a little while in the making. You're a busy gentleman, obviously, but to get some context, Jeff, to what you're currently up to with the team at Momentous in the endurance and greater sporting world, let's start with a little bit of background on yourself. You have had quite the professional sporting career in NFL or American football. How did all this start for you and where did it get to and what was your exit point?
I am definitely not an endurance athlete by background, but it's something I'm extremely passionate about now and have grown into across the board and have done lots of stupid things in the endurance world post-retiring. But so I was the exact opposite. I was an offensive lineman, which basically means I used to weigh 300 plus pounds, which is I was a big man. I still am a pretty big man in the grand scheme of things. But now I just say I have a kilo problem because that's what endurance athletes say when they're a little overweight. I definitely don't have a watt problem when we think about riding the bike. I have lots of watts. I'm really good at that. But anyway, so my background is I went to university at a place called University of Southern California in Los Angeles. We were the top football team in the country when I was there. I played for a guy named Pete Carroll, who is a very famous American football coach, coaches for the Seattle Seahawks, and is a tremendous and has been a tremendous influence on my life. Today, had a wonderful opportunity to go play in the NFL. Played there for 4 years and had a lot of fun, but was really ready to be done. It's a very violent, brutal game on your body, on your brain. And yeah, it led me into Momentous, what is now Momentous. It's been a long journey to get to where it is today. It goes like this. So I retired in 2013 was my last season. And I had a long-standing job offer in finance. I had actually gotten my master's in business while I was still playing, and realized really quickly when I got in the finance world, it's not what I wanted to do. It wasn't what wasn't who I was. I was such a team builder, really passionate about business as a whole. And finance was just such a small little piece of that. So in 2015, I really started to figure out what I wanted to do and started to ping my network and say, what could I do and where do I want to go? And I got introduced to this really early stage biotech company based in LA. And they were working on this technology to deliver pharmaceuticals into the body. They were looking for a unique hire. They had this crazy idea. What if we could use this technology outside of pharmaceutical industry, outside of medical industry? And it was a match made in heaven. So they brought me on, and this was in 2015. And I helped them raise some capital initially because of my finance background. And then this passion project that is now what we call PR Lotion started to come to life. We got some really, really incredible early data around PR Lotion, but more importantly, we got some really early success in the endurance space. And I'll break down what PR Lotion is right now. PR Lotion delivers sodium bicarbonate to the body. Bicarb buffers acid. And as we all know, when we train hard and long, we produce acid. What is commonly referred to as lactic acid, or what people think about technically, hydrogen ions and lactate move together, but they aren't bonded in the muscle at the point when we're buffering. Anyways, so this company had figured out a way to deliver substances into the body, and substances very similar to sodium bicarbonate. So we figured out we could deliver sodium bicarbonate through the skin in the form of a lotion to help reduce acid in the muscles. So therefore allowing you to train harder for longer, recover faster. And the problem with oral sodium bicarbonate, the other way, is it's incredibly impractical. People have been trying to drink bicarbonate for a very, very long time, and it causes massive GI distress. And so this was my foray into the endurance sports world. Is endurance athletes have been trying to find a way to use sodium bicarbonate in training and performance for a very, very long time. Some people succeed with it. A lot of other people have massive GI distress where it comes up or out the wrong way. And a really good way to have a bad performance or a bad training session is to crap your pants or have an upset stomach. So yeah, if you get it right, it works, right? And the one thing that's really unique about sodium bicarbonate is it's on the list from the International Olympic Committee as one of the proven molecules that has good data behind it, very safe and effective, and is not banned. It's on the list with things like caffeine and beta alanine and creatine, and it's a very small list of 5, which is really, but it's never been practical. Everything else is practical in that list to take orally because you don't have issues. So that was my foray into endurance, and I started getting in with the elite cyclists in Europe and some of the elite triathletes across the world, and have had the luxury to work with the best runners, and they've adopted the product. And one of the things we as a company have really done is tried to continue to do clinical research. We're still super young. We started the company in mid 2018. We're almost going on our 4-year anniversary. The product and the idea started much earlier at the biotech. But in 2018, my co-founder and I, we acquired this technology, right? And we started a company called Amp Human, which has now become Momentous. But we built this and started the company based upon the vision of how do we build a company at the forefront of human performance? How do we really start bringing innovation, best-in-class products to the market to serve the needs of the athlete? And that is really now what Momentous is becoming a systematic-based approach to thinking about human performance. We have a really deep product portfolio and bench that we're building out, but also we've really continued to do a lot of clinical research to understand better what is happening with PR Lotion, but are also committed to doing that with other products and other technologies potentially down the road.
My first exposure, Jeff, to PR Lotion was at the Gold Coast Marathon in 2019 when I was doing some physiotherapy for Zane Robertson. the Oceanic Marathon record holder, at his hotel. And Zane said, "Can you use this, please?" When I was working with him in his room the day before the race. That was my first exposure to it. And then, as you say, it's prolific in the East African running community. Ethiopia, Kenya. Spent some time in Ethiopia. I saw some athletes with it trackside. It really has, from the outside looking in, taken off.
It's been super special. PR Lotion it's patented. We've done 8 clinical trials around it. We've got 2 that are getting ready to get out and publish. One will definitely publish this calendar year, which is really, really a special study. It was done at the University of Oregon, and it was a microdialysis study actually looking at pH shifts in the muscle. So can't share too much as it's in this cycle, but it's one of the last remaining big pieces of information that we look to gain and understand what was happening in the body. And I think the one thing for me, coming from the elite sports world, is I got to see so much of what happened, right? And so many innovative products, but a lot of products that never made it to the consumer, or a lot of people selling snake oil. And the one thing that I never wanted to do was be like everybody else or promote something just with marketing. And we've invested a lot of time and capital into clinical research. And that's very unique for a company our size. And it's been something that's really separated us and is what has helped us continue to gain penetration into the major athletes, the major runners, the major pro sporting teams in the US, whether that be the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, is just this commitment to science and saying, we don't have all the answers. We have some really good data. It's not the best data, but we are committed to continuing to do this. And it's given us the ability to have some really frank conversations, but also learn what are the questions that we need answered, really. And we've been able to find a lot of those. And that's why I'm so excited. We did these 2 studies. And like I said, the one at Oregon is so relevant and so important because it's the one question that people always ask, well, what is happening in the muscle, right? What is actually happening? Not just a performance study, not just blood draws, but what is happening in the muscle. And that's what we're able to show with this study. And I'm very excited because I want to be at the forefront of human performance. And you can't be at the forefront of human performance if you're not willing to ask hard questions, do things that have never been done before, right? And potentially put yourself at risk, right? Really safe. We had one of the top kind of exercise physiology personalities here in the States, kind of do a review on PR Lotion recently and had no idea that we had been doing all this other clinical research. And I reached out post kind of his analysis. And I said, hey, we got, we're doing all this other research. He's like, I wouldn't do any other research. I think like what you have is great. You don't want to open up Pandora's box. And what happens if it doesn't show what you want it to show? You got a nice little thing going. And for me, I just responded back. I said, that's what most people would do, but we're trying to do it differently and answer those hard questions because the people we're associated with, that's why they're associated with us, is because if we're just doing it like everybody else, then we're just like everybody else. And my background in pro sports is you're going to do it better than it's ever been done. That's the motto. If there's a better way and there's a way to do it the best. And that's what I want to build and what I've been striving to build.
The professional cycling scene, the pro peloton certainly has been big proponents of it. We featured Cam Wurf, a momentous athlete several months ago. It was a very popular episode, and Cam shared that it's one of his secret sources, PR Lotion. Obviously, he's in the Ineos Grenadiers, and Geraint Thomas is another advocate for PR Lotion. You must follow the professional cycling peloton's results with some interest these days.
Yeah, I grew up riding my bike a lot, and I grew up in the era that Lance was in, right? And Lance just captivated everybody, I think. And for me as an athlete during that era and right in college or Lance, there was nobody better from an athletic perspective in that era. And so I really got into cycling. I was an offensive lineman, right? Like when I'm watching the Tour de France, like I was playing college football. Again, like I weighed like 300 pounds. So I do and I got into it. And when we started the company, we were based in LA. And one of the guys I first got connected to was a former elite pro cyclist. and was just asking him like his knowledge of bicarbonate. And he's like, oh man, they used to make us drink this before track or time trials, and like had all these horror stories. And it just kind of went from there. He connected me to some of the elite exercise physiologists in the space, a couple of the riders, and it just started snowballing so quickly. I had no intention at all to build this product or company starting with cycling. Right? We kind of thought, we could do all these things. And we just went hard into cycling. Like it just started in cycling, and all of a sudden it just started taking off. And as Cam said, like became like the secret sauce. And the biggest challenge the first couple of years that we were in business was not getting the pro athletes and such to use it. How do we tell the story? Nobody wanted to share anything. It was like this biggest secret ever. And we work with so many athletes that have broken incredible records from the running and triathlon that we just don't get to talk about because we don't work with them officially, and they're just byproduct or, ask us, hey, so-and-so is giving me some stuff. This is amazing. It's like, can you share that? So it's been really exciting. So I still love cycling, and I do follow the pro peloton, and I've been lucky enough because of my background to build some cool relationships with some of these athletes too, which I don't think many companies have the ability to. And one of the things that I'm so passionate about is the athletes we work with chose to work with us, right? We didn't go to their agent and say, hey, we want to work. And Cam Wurf being one of them, Cam was using product for like 2 years, like out of the lab, essentially, before we were even a company. And I was just like, Cam, we got to figure something out. I was like, nah, mate. Cam's a joker and would, harass me too. But ultimately, we started getting big enough that these athletes decided to jump on board. And many of them have trusted me, to be like their shareholders in the business and have invested alongside financial investors, which has been really pretty special.
Then Cam Wurf, who just mentioned there, what a great performance he had just on the weekend in Paris-Roubaix, sitting there at the front of arguably one of the hardest one-day races on the planet. And that team, Ineos Grenadiers, delivered the victory there with Dylan van der Baal, and Cam was the workhorse up front. Yeah, Cam is a special one. There's no doubt about that. Maybe because he's from Tasmania and he's half crazy. I don't know. He's always telling me he can do anything, right? And he's like, I'm going to go. Tom Brady wants to play till he's 45. I'm going to be a pro athlete till I'm 50. And I'm like, doing what? What are you going to do? And it is. I mean, he is so special and has such incredible personality and motivation and drive that very, very few people have. And for his ability to cross so many sports, to go from an Olympic rower to in the pro peloton to triathlon to being one of the best to doing both pro peloton and triathlon, and who knows, maybe he'll start rowing again. And he keeps telling me he's going to come be a kicker in the NFL because he thinks he can do it. Australian swim coach, legend Dennis Cotterill, coach of Grant Hackett and Sun Yang. He's coached many gold medalists. It's the swimming Olympic golds. That is. Dennis comments that Cam Wurf is one of Australia's greatest ever athletes, yet he's one of the most under-recognised in so many ways outside of endurance sports. But what a great athlete. In triathlon, Jeff, I guess it's little surprise. It does seem to be a sport where if there's an innovation to be found and an uptake of some new technology, it's often found in the triathlon space, even sometimes before the professional cycling space, with the nature of triathletes just looking for that benefit. You work officially with Lucy Charles Barclay, who is obviously doing great things in the endurance triathlon space. What have you enjoyed getting to observe with some of the triathlon scene? Ironman is the pinnacle when we think about what an athlete can endure and suffer. It is unlike any other sport that's out there. And right, the Ironman, like how it all started and what that means. And so I really believe that an Ironman athlete is such a special beast and is really the pinnacle when we think about high performance, right? From an individual perspective. Like you can't be high behind a team. You can't do any of this. Like it is such a high performance sport. It takes such a
incredible amount of dedication to that athletic endeavor. Doesn't take a ton of skill, right? Like Cam Wurf, like you don't have to grow up throwing a ball or catching a ball or kicking a ball. You just have to be able to put work in, learn really good techniques, but it's not something that like you got to be good at a bunch of things and you got to have the engine and you just got to be able to get punched in the face 100 times and keep on going, because it's watching how they train, how they suffer is really quite incredible to me. It's very different. It's a very different sport from what I am used to, which is like the ultimate team game. And there's so much strategy and mental. Not saying that's not part of triathlon. My game that I played was 50% chess and 50% car crashes. And that chess game is knowing what your opponent's going to do, predictive, watching tape. And their game is just how long can I be on the brink of passing out?
Jeff, just moving back to PR Lotion, just for the uninitiated, those that haven't seen the product or use the product, what are the benefits and how do people use it, Jeff, in training and racing?
PR Lotion. So, right, when we think about the body, when we train really intense training, think about intervals or like max effort, we produce hydrogen ions, and hydrogen ions build up in our body. And we call that our lactate threshold, essentially. Right. And as we build those up, we near fatigue, and we actually have, right, we have to rest and recover, right, to clear those hydrogen ions, that acid. Hydrogen ions is acid, out of our muscles, right? Once those are cleared, we can go. But our ability to buffer is really a limiting factor in that, right? So if we can increase our ability to buffer, to reduce those hydrogen ions, we can push a little harder for a little longer. And the implications that has for competition is massive, right? It basically allows you to go harder for longer, which means you're going to have a better outcome. But from a training perspective, that means you can consolidate training gains. You can do more work, right? And ultimately, how do we consolidate training gains over long periods of time is really how do we make significant changes. And so PR Lotion allows you to train harder. It allows you to recover faster because you're helping reduce some of the damage that's happening in the muscle from a chemical perspective. It just allows you to perform, compete better. And so how we see it used, right? You put it on before you train, right? And as a lot of people actually ask that question or get it wrong, you put it on before you train. We say in the 30 to 60 minute window before you're going to go hard or go long, you put it on your major active muscle groups. So if you're running or cycling, low back down, low back, glutes, quads, hams, calves. And then you go out and get after it. And you use it on those really long or really intense days. And you can use it in competition as well. And so that's how it's most commonly used, right? To reduce the acid in our muscles as it's produced. Bicarbonate is a naturally occurring electrolyte, right? And so when you think about it, it just helps the muscle function. No different than traditional sodium or potassium or magnesium. The problem is it's hard to ingest. If you think about your muscle, if you don't have enough sodium, it's not going to fire correctly, and you're not going to have as good of a training day or as good of an event if you don't have the proper other electrolytes as well. And so all we're doing is pushing your muscle's ability a little bit higher so you can be a little more effective in that. There's some tricks that pros use, and you were talking about rubbing down an elite triathlete. Some really, if you're getting a massage, you're getting body tissue work. A lot of our pro athletes have found that they use it post event as a massage cream. We don't have any clinical data on that, right? We haven't studied post what it does to inflammation and things like that. There's some dotted lines that you could connect from clinical research and what reducing acid in the muscle could do post-workout. But truthfully, right, when we think about hydrogen ions, we clear them very quickly. We just do. That's what we do as humans. Like, we clear it out of our muscles super quickly without PR Lotion. But post-workout, there's tons of free radical damage and all these other things that have a role that we have some dotted lines to. So how you should use it. Put it on pre-hard pre-long workout or competition event. It will make that day better. It will allow you to maximize your training gains if you do it repeatedly. And, for some people, you just feel better the next day, so you can get after it again.
Yeah, I remember Cam Wurf. I think his introduction was from a NASCAR driver who he was raving about it. And Cam's like, I've got to try some of this. And Zane, the marathoner that we referenced before, at a workout there in Ethiopia in Saluta in 2020, he sat there on the track, as did a few of the other athletes, and they were rubbing it over their muscles that are about to do the work, the lower limb muscles. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, as you say, it's a pre-workout application. Jeff, curious, you mentioned that you came from a team environment, professional sporting team environment. What would you say Jeff Byers' top 3 team tips are for an effective team? Every endurance athlete, every individual athlete has a team around them. What are the top 3 characteristics of effective teams, Jeff?
I think you all got to be aligned to a common goal. There's got to be real accountability, and you got to communicate effectively. And that means communicate the good and the bad, et cetera. And so, right, alignment to a common goal, super easy. If you want to win and you got people on your team who don't want to win or aren't super passionate about winning, you got a problem. Right. And with that, I call that like, you got to have the right people on the bus. You got to have the right people on the bus at the right time. And you got to have those people in the right seats. And you got to be able to communicate to get people moved, et cetera. So, yeah.
And the accountability piece, real accountability, a big topic, I guess. But any tips you've learned through your professional sporting career and then heading up a performance-based company around accountability? How is accountability established and maintained?
I think accountability is super hard because it's very uncomfortable. In the pro sports setting, right? You're dealing with the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Yeah. And it's ruthless. People come and go, right? They get rid of you, and nobody wants to be the guy or the gal that lets the team down. It's not like that everywhere. And that's okay, right? People are passionate about different things. And that's the one thing in the business world you have to remember is momentous is not life, right? It is not everybody in my business and in my business to come or in my business past wakes up and thinks momentous is the only thing that matters. In pro sports, you wake up and you design your day, your life around pro sports. That is not what happens in the real world. And it's hard. And it makes accountability even harder. And so I think the key to accountability in business, and I failed at a lot of this because it's hard. And people are very different. And, I am wired and my co-founder are wired very, very, right. We came out of very high performance environments where we got direct feedback often, and people left because they didn't want to, because they got told to, or they made. And so I think the thing in business, it's communication. It's making sure you tell people up front what the expectations are, because if you don't share the expectations up front, then when you have to deliver news that they're not performing, that's very hard.
You use the word brutal, and from the insights I've had, I'd say that's a very fair assessment. It is brutal. It is brutal at every level. The outcomes of the athletes. If we look at Olympic Games, there's normally 3 happy athletes and the rest of the field's in some way disappointed. That's brutal. There's injuries. They're brutal. There's non-selections. That's brutal. There's sponsorship deals that end. That's brutal. It is, as you say, it's aspirational for so many people, which is a wonderful thing. We look at elite athletes, we aspire, they inspire us to do more, be more. But the reality behind closed doors is it's a tough game, a tough game. Jeff, you mentioned the word culture. Just pushing you on this top 3 theme, you've been in no doubt great teams with great culture in your professional sporting life and perhaps teams that didn't have that same culture. What would you say are Jeff Byers' top 3 culture tips? What constitutes a high performance culture? Top 3 tips, Jeff?
That's a good one. I think consistency in approach from leadership, right? Like if I'm a roller coaster, that's really hard to build culture. Right. So consistency of approach and consistency of message. so that people know what to expect from me. And from my team. If we miss sales, I want them to know how I'm going to respond. And if we hit sales, I want them to know how we're going to respond. Like that's awesome. Like no different than in sports. Like if you win, lose, draw, whatever, like that consistent approach so that on Monday, I know what to expect, I think is pretty important. Always invest in people, the good people, the culture builders. They might not always be the most talented, but you need them. You win games with your bench. You don't always win them with your star players because your bench is what keeps people together. Number 3, right? I mean, it kind of goes back to consistency, like have set principles and values, right? And make them known and live them and celebrate them. And if people don't live by them, get rid of them because those are non-negotiables.
Powerful, Jeff. Consistency and approach message, number 1. 2, invest in people. You said you win games with the bench, not the star players. That's powerful. And 3, set values, communicate them and live up to them, celebrate them. You win games with star players. You don't win championships. You win championships with your bench, right? You can win games with star players. You always win games with star players. So I'm right hearing that said, like you will win games with star players. You win championships with your bench. You're listening to Jeff Byers, CEO of Live.Momentous, formerly Amp Human, sharing on this Endurance Innovators episode of the Physical Performance Show. Support for today's show comes from Polar. Polar recently announced their new generation stunning running watches, the Polar Pacer and the Polar Pacer Pro. These watches will give both first-time runners and the serious runners the tools and the insights to track their performance and inform training. Both watches offer an incomparable running experience with powerful training and recovery features that help runners understand their body and know when they're doing too much or not enough to reach their goals. The Polar Pacer Pro, well, that's for those who want to run better. It's one of the most powerful and sophisticated running watches ever built. It's ultralight with a high-performance core processor and includes an extensive suite of advanced training tools that will help serious runners improve their running economy and performance. With built-in navigation and running power, it debuts at an incredible $499. Now, the Polar Pacer, that's the watch for those who want to fall in love with running. It's ideal for those who are starting their running journey, embodying the simplicity of running with all the essentials, plus the specialized training, sleep, and recovery tools needed to fall in love with the sport. The Polar Pacer helps all runners get started at $299. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations. If you are an endurance athlete struggling with bone, tendon, or joint-related concerns, our 45-minute online consultations can be an ideal way to help get you back to your physical best. You can schedule your appointment with myself online or any of the team at Pogo Physio. Jump over to pogophysio.com.au/telehealth. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured guest, Jeff Byers, CEO of Live.Momentous, on this Endurance Innovators episode. Jeff, the Momentous product portfolio, where's it going? What can the endurance sporting community expect for future developments and alongside, obviously, PR Lotion? So we have a bunch of products here in the States, and we're going to start releasing international and being able to get more there. PR Lotion is the only available product international really right now. Yeah, so how we became Momentous is a great story. About 10 months ago, 9.5 months ago, it's been that long, we acquired a company called Momentous. And Momentous was a best-in-class sports nutrition and supplement company here in the States, one of the most trusted brands in pro and college sports, but was still a pretty young company, not much older than we were. And one of the things that I knew we had to do we had this great patented product called PR Lotion, but it's still pretty niche. And we're playing in the space, and how do we serve further needs of the consumer rather than just be a product company? How do we ultimately become a partner with the athlete and become solution oriented and solve multiple problems? One of the things that I saw as an athlete was you basically had a systematic based approach, right, to what you do, and that baseline approach was relatively simple in pro sports. We were
all genetic freaks, right? To get to where Cam Wurf is or Lucy or where I was, you just got to be a genetic freak, period. Right? Like that just is part of it. And we're all blessed and lucky to be that. But then it's this consistency of approach and doing what I call the foundation really well. I call it a system, right? Like this human performance system. And we all have different tweaks and such. And PR Lotion plays a role in it, not for everybody, but for some people. And so how do we create a company around solving human performance problems, high performance problems, not just a product, right? And then how do we not just be a product catalog? We want to solve problems and create a systematic based approach so athletes can come to us and high performance can come to us and they can understand sleep and recovery and training and hydration and performance, whatever it may be. And so that's really kind of where I think about where is our North Star is how do we take data inputs, right? Create curated recommendations. What happens at the elitist level is do X, Y, and Z, Jeff, because you've had these surgeries, because your immune system is strong or not strong, because you have an issue with recovery, whatever that may be. And here's your protocol or here's your plan. And it's made up of a couple of different protocols. So that's where kind of I see the North Star. So Momentous has we have a whole sports nutrition supplementation lineup now, from proteins to collagen and everywhere and beyond. And we're going to continue to build that out. And we're going to build it in multiple facets. So we're going to do it in traditional sports nutrition, right? We have a fuel, which is like an intra workout carbohydrate based endurance product. We have a hydrate, which is a basic hydration. We have recovery. We're going to build out that sports nutrition. Then we're also going to build out this foundational supplement product line to really build out how can we help people optimize, right? Because you're only training so many hours a day. Right. And for most of us, it's like an hour and a half, most normal humans. What an elite athlete does, right, is when they think about performance, it's not that training session they're thinking about. They're thinking about performance the second they wake up and all the decisions throughout the day. What do I eat? What do I take? Where do I walk the dog? Where do I not walk the dog? Like stack it, right? Everything they're doing is going around that. But the consumer doesn't think about that. The weekend warrior athlete, the average athlete, they're not thinking about performance in that sense. So how do we bring that to the market to say, well, here's sleep is critical. Here's the subjects around sleep or what you can do to enhance your sleep. And so really thinking about high performance holistically rather than as a product. So we have a pretty big product portfolio. We're looking to do some innovation in the connective tissue health space. It's someplace I'm super passionate about. And then also in the brain health space as well, just continuing to further some cool research that we've found and some people are working on.
You mentioned that high performers don't think just about the training session. They're also thinking about making quality decisions either side of that training to optimize the outcome. Recovery scientist Shona Halson, who's featured on the show as an expert addition, Jeff, she has this beautiful maxim, and that is that the only training we benefit from is the training that we recover from. And it's so simple, but it's so profound, right?
That is awesome. It's so true, right? But I think that's where as we think about, and the people that are listening, yeah, some of them are pro or incredibly elite athletes. But for me, I care about my training, but I don't care about my training to win anything. I care about my training because it's a part of a high performance lifestyle that I want to live, because I want to do the things I love for longer. I want to do them better, and I want to live longer, be healthier, right? All of these things. But the problem is, right, people are just like talking about very specific points in time. Like, how do we think about it and give advice and give protocols around life to live a high performance lifestyle? Because that's what elite athletes do. I got to think about recovery for my workout because I don't have to play tomorrow. I can't choose to take a rest day tomorrow. I got to show up and put my butt in this seat, right? I got to go home, spend time with my kids. Like, life is pro athletes have got it easy, right? You could take a rest day. You got a whole team around you, all of these things. And you're like so myopic on your goal. Whereas like my goals are so broad now, right? I'm not thinking about being the best football player. I'm thinking about like longevity and how do I maintain my brain health, my connective tissue health, like train, not go crazy, build a team, like all these things. And what's going to help me do that?
No, that's brilliant. And Jeff, before we wrap up with our 2 set questions that every guest gets asked, I must loop back and ask you just use the longevity word. You've played in the NFL. You've possibly played games against Tom Brady. I mean, obviously he transcends NFL. Most people on the planet know of Tom Brady. What do you think has given Tom Brady such longevity?
Genetics, right? Like it always starts there, like, and luck, like you get lucky as athletes and everybody does that. He is, right. So I never played with him, but I know a lot of people who have and lots of friends who have. Tom is a fanatic about his routine and his protocols, and he's always trying to find what that is, right? He's very, very consistent, right? And when you watch him play, if you don't know football, he doesn't ever take undue risks unless he has to. Or, like when you watch him play, he's always, right? As long as there's still time left on the clock, he believes he can win. And so he'll make a decision to not take a hit or not do something that could jeopardize longevity to say, I'll do it. I could do it the next play or the next play. But Tom has been lucky. He's super gifted, but his consistency of approach and his passion to do that is unbreakable, right? Is second to none.
Wow. And that fanaticism, if you like, about the routine, high performance, by definition, high performers, they have to do things differently. They have to see the world differently. They have to think differently. Otherwise they'd be doing what everyone else is doing. So it's an interesting insight, but it makes sense. Jeff, every guest of the show gets issued 2 set questions. The first being, if you could boil everything that you've learned throughout your professional sporting career now into the innovation around high performance solutions and products into one single piece of advice to help listeners of this show perform at their physical best, what would Jeff Byers' single piece of advice be?
So I have this motto that I stole from somebody else, but the one thing that I've realized that is absolutely critical to everything is, in football, I had a coach that said the ball always gets snapped, which means you always got to make a decision and you got to go with it, right? You're going to win, you're going to lose. Next play, the ball is going to get snapped. Whether you're ready or not, life is going on. The game is going on. And to me, right, that is the one thing that I've tried to remember the most throughout my young business career is the ball is always going to get snapped. Whether, like, if I'm not ready, then that's on me, right? Make a decision and go. You're going to win. You're going to lose. The goal is to win a little bit more than you lose here, and you're not going to win them all, and that's okay. But the ball is going to get snapped. Make a decision and go. Lots of people are so afraid to make a decision, or they're not ready for when the ball gets snapped. You just got to be ready and react and play. Right. And it's going to happen again and it's going to happen again. And every play you take is another play to advance, right? To learn, to grow. And that to me is like the top piece of advice. We're all going to get knocked down. We're all going to have wins, but that doesn't matter, right? It matters what the ball is going to get snapped again. What's going to happen there? The ball is going to get snapped again. And you got to be ready to do that and make decisions. So the ball will always get snapped. Right. If you're an American football fan, you'll get that. But it relates to everything. Like, you got to be ready to go and you have to make decisions. You got to make a decision whether you're ready or not, and you got to be prepared, right? You don't have to always be right. Right. And that's, I think, the big thing. So anyways, that's my one biggest advice as I think about crossover from really elite sport to business to life is just, in that note, you kind of got to have a short memory, right? Like, in all this, like, because, I might have just gotten absolutely destroyed the last play, but the ball is going to get snapped again and I got to be ready to go. And it doesn't matter what happened, right? Like, Cam Wurf could have crashed his bike a week before. He's still got to show up, and he can't be thinking about crashing his bike. I can't be thinking about the decision I made on a person yesterday. I got to be thinking about the people on my team today.
Gosh, Jeff, there's a lot in that, and it's powerful. I've written down there, every play you take is another play to advance, to grow. Powerful. Jeff, every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Jeff Byers, CEO Momentous, physical challenge going to be?
It's a really good one. I even thought about this one. My physical challenge is sleep more this week. Sleep is the underlying most keystone piece of anything that we do, from brain function to body function. And my physical challenge to everybody is get a little more sleep, or get a little higher quality sleep. Put your phone away. Sleep and quality of sleep will change your life more than anything else that you can do, period.
Gosh. It's isn't it refreshing, Jeff, that the grind, the hustle and grind culture is slowly falling to the wayside, and instead we're talking about, in high performance, the importance of prioritizing things like sleep. I think it's refreshing. We've had a sleep expert on in the past, Jeff, who said replace the adage of rise and grind with sleep in and win.
It's so true. I mean, what we've learned about sleep, around longevity, around all of these things, it is the most powerful tool we have, right? You don't need to sleep for 10 hours, but we need to have consistency of sleep and quality of sleep. And what we do know is a lot of our modern lifestyle is not conducive to that. And there's a lot of things that we can do and think about. And like, maybe you only need 6 hours of sleep a day. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but just get better sleep. Like, that is a challenge, right? When you got kids, when you got stress, when you got all of this, but create an environment for sleep. What we know is it pays dividends across the board to everything that we do, from hormone production to cortisol. I mean, it is the fundamental thing. And even from brain health, right? Sleep is so critical to how we flush our brain and the toxins out of our brain. It only happens when we sleep. So other than sleep more, my challenge would be to do 250 burpees. If you don't know what a burpee, they're also known as up downs.
Yeah. Burpees translates internationally very well, Jeff. So get better sleep. I think most of us would go for that one, but those that want to take on the 250 burpees challenge can do so. Jeff, for those that want to follow the journey, either of yourself or Momentous, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, our website is Live.Momentous.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and all those other fun places, but Live.Momentous.com is where we're at. You can find us. We're a work in progress for sure across the board, telling our story, trying to continue to bring great things out there. But yeah, that's where we are.
And that's aspirational and inspirational in and of itself, Jeff. So, Jeff, thank you amongst your very full schedule for stopping by at the Physical Performance Show and sharing a little of your journey and your passion and your expertise. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. This has been fun. I appreciate the honor to be able to come on.
So there you have it. Some great principles from Jeff Byers. Keep your eye out for Live Momentous. It is an endurance brand on the rise. Now, I should point out, this is not a paid advertorial. As I've mentioned on prior Endurance Innovators episodes, we are exploring the minds and the whys behind some of the great innovations in the endurance sporting industry and community. Do follow Live Momentous over on social at live.momentous, Live. Whilst there, also tag in the show at Physical Performance Show on any podsies that you're taking. That's a screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying at any given moment in time. Big thanks, as always, to those great folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, audio engineering, Susan Wilkin, show administration, Matthew Olding, show graphic design, and Milan Borrow, videography. Speaking of videos, do jump over and you can now view all episodes over on YouTube, along with clips of some of the key learn-ins. Big thanks to our patrons of the show. Your support is very practical and helpful in the production of the show. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, it's simple. Jump over to physicalperformanceshow.com, click the Patreon tab, and there you can pledge your support from just $5 per month. And in return, we'll grant you complimentary access to all of our back catalogue of live stream events and all upcoming live stream events, including the recently announced next live stream with former Expert Edition guest of the show, positive sports psychology researcher Rory Darkins. Now, on Saturday, the 10th of September, 2022, Rory will present a 3-hour live stream titled Positive Sports Psychology, Cultivating Deep Wellbeing. Themes explored will include what wellbeing actually is, how we measure it, the links between wellbeing and performance, and practical strategies for optimizing your wellbeing. Tickets are available for just $49 per person over at physicalperformanceshow.com. Of course, if you are a patron of the show, you will be granted complimentary access. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we jump over for a Coach's Corner with Purple Patch Fitness founder and author of Fast Track Triathlete, Matt Dixon. It's a conversation not to be missed. It was a whole lot of fun recording with Matt. So until next week, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.